What up, cuckolds? It's your boy the Hater. Another thing that happened that I noticed in AEW, I mean, I didn't watch it, of course, but that I noticed, that I read about, was apparently they're continuing, or building, I should say, a feud between Eddie Kingston, maybe the most boring wrestler of all time, and Okada, probably the most overrated wrestler of all time. Now, that's fine, you know what I mean? Do it. I could give a shit, right? I'm never gonna pay for that. I'm never gonna watch that, even if it's free, to be completely honest. Like, if tomorrow they're like, it's gonna be Okada versus Eddie Kingston at the pay-per-view, I'd be like, great, I don't care. I don't care at all. If they say it's gonna be tomorrow at whatever, Dynamite, right? I'd be like, I don't care about that either. I don't want to watch it at all, right? But go ahead, have it. People want to see it. Be my guest. Go jerk each other off afterwards. I don't care, right? I'm talking about the fans here. Now, the problem with this match, though, is as follows. You cannot simultaneously present to me Okada as a main eventer and then have him go against maybe the most meaningless wrestling title in the world, second only to the UK Heritage Cup, right? And as a matter of fact, at least the UK Heritage Cup has a gimmick behind it. But anyways, the point stands, right? Okada is either going to be a main eventer or he's not. He's not young enough to start him in the mid-card. And furthermore, the more important element that needs to be considered here is the fact, cucks, that Okada, despite not being young enough, or maybe even if you consider him to be young enough to have a full career in AEW, which you probably won't, he's probably going to just flounder like every other Japanese wrestler since Tajiri. But anyways, the point is, I would even argue that he's already floundering, but that's not here nor there. The point is, you can't bring this guy under the pretense that he's the best wrestler in the world and that he's a main eventer and not put him in the main event, right? There needs to be some parity between different companies, right? AEW doesn't do this. They take legends like Jericho and they put him in the main event, but Okada, it seems like, has to at least start working his way up. I could give a shit if Okada wins the European title version of AEW. Nobody should care about that, right? This would be the equivalent of when WWE, when Vince McMahon bought WCW, and the contract started expiring. And every couple of months, we'd see like a huge debut of like a new megastar to the WWE. I'm talking the Rey Mysterios. I'm talking to a certain extent Scott Steiner. I'm talking about a lot of people that were big, like big already, right? Rey Mysterio was already a legend before he signed with WWE. That's why he's one of the GOATs. But let's use the example of Bill Goldberg. Bill Goldberg came in, and his first feud was beating Triple H and becoming the world champion, right? All of a sudden, WCW is legitimized, right? Bill Goldberg is legitimized. You don't need Goldberg to debut and beat Shelton Benjamin for the Intercontinental title or Jeff Hardy for the European title or whoever it was, Christian Diamond Dallas Page. You don't need him to do that because he's fucking Goldberg. You understand? Now, when I say he's fucking Goldberg, I'm not talking about the fact that Goldberg is like a once-in-a-lifetime attraction because he's like this just mountain of a human who's just so badass that like everyone loved Goldberg in the 90s. I'm not talking about that. I mean, that's also true, obviously. But I'm talking more about the position he had on the other card. The position he had in WCW was he was a bona fide main eventer. He was in many ways their Undertaker, right? Like, he wasn't always the champion because, at that time it was like Booker T and Scott Steiner and Jeff Jarrett and things like that. But he was always there, right? He was always there having a big time feud. I think it was the last Starrcade. I think I saw the last Starrcade. Like, my mom's job gave tickets out and one of my mom's coworkers won it and they gave it to my mom because they knew I was a big fan. I was small. I went with my friend Nicholas. Shout out to you, Nicholas, if you ever listen to this from Argentina. Dale. But anyways, me and Nick went out there and we watched it and I remember a lot of it, right? But I'll tell you this. One of the things I remember the most is the Bill Goldberg match because it was like if Goldberg loses, his career is over. So there was a prominence attached to Goldberg. This is not any different than Okada, right? Sure, Okada can be put in New Japan and be made like like part of a six-man tag, right? But he's going to be at the G1 Climax in the finals or the semifinals if he's not winning it, right? And he has like a million IWGP heavyweight title runs. And I think he has the longest one too, right? So he's like one of the best guys to ever come out of New Japan. Like, you can make the argument he is the best guy to come out of New Japan. And the best guy to come out of New Japan is interested in fighting a lower card guy from ROH? Have you lost your minds? Ask yourself. If for some reason John Cena and Randy Orton decided they're going to go to AEW, do you think the first feud of John Cena would be John Cena versus Swerve Scott? That would be the first match, and Cena just squashes him in 3 seconds, right? But the first feud of John Cena would be John Cena, Samoa Joe. The end. It would be just that, and Cena would win the title. Same thing with Orton, right? This idea that WWE main eventers are going to come to AEW and become mid-carders is absurd. Now, I know what you're thinking. Hater, WWE is not New Japan. So, the parity is there because, unfortunately, you know what I'm saying? Okada is a jobber. So, what can we do, right? We have to treat him as such. And I agree. I perfectly understand that argument, right? You can bring in Okada as a mid-carder. In fact, I would argue that that's where he belongs, right? But the problem is they did not bring him in as a mid-carder, right? In my other video, I explained that they paid, well, at least as far as the rumor goes, they paid up to $14 million for this asshole. And they paid this so Okada can wrestle Eddie Kingston. I would even go as far as saying that if he wins the title from Eddie Kingston, this is a huge step back. Like, it'd be better if you lost. It would even be better if you lost clean, right? Because this is not going to work out. Him as a mid-card champion, as like the third relevant champion in this company, right? Behind people like Orange Cassidy, right? He's behind the card when compared to Orange Cassidy, right? That's not going to work, right? Even putting him against Daniel Bryan or Cesaro or Dean Ambrose is not going to work. Maybe Dean Ambrose. He should go after the world title immediately. Okada, Samoa Joe at the next pay-per-view, Okada wins clean. That's how you book a star. Same way they did with Bill Goldberg, right? They didn't have Bill Goldberg go out there and have a meaningless match against Spike Dudley, right? No, because it's already assumed that Bill Goldberg is better than Spike Dudley, and we all are in agreement, right? Nobody would ever say back then, what? They're burying Spike Dudley? I can't believe they're doing this. They're pushing Goldberg? They're pushing Goldberg on the back of Spike Dudley? That's not fair. Spike Dudley's put in his time. Nobody would say that. But today they might, right? Today the fans might turn on you, and they eventually will, because Okada's boring, right? Like, coming out and stealing D'Angelo De Niro's gimmick because you worked as his cameraman called Kiddo. Think about what you're cheering for, you dipshit Okada fans. This is a guy who came to TNA, right? Had one of the worst runs in the history of wrestling as the cameraman. I don't remember if he was the cameraman of Samoa Joe or the cameraman of Elijah Burke, D'Angelo De Niro. That's how irrelevant he was. I'm not even sure which guy he was affiliated with because he didn't do anything. He just got his ass beat every week, right? Then the cameraman realized that there's a person in this company called D'Angelo De Niro who is extremely charismatic, and he has the presence that I mentioned in the Hammerstone video, which I may have not released yet, cucks, but I did just record it. I'm not sure where the order I'm going to release this in. So Okada pretty much says, oh, I have zero personality, and I got nothing out of coming to TNA, except what I'm going to do is I'm going to completely steal the Pope's gimmick, right? Now, he does that. I don't think he fully understands the gimmick, to be honest. But his gimmick is that of the Rainmaker. He makes it rain. Think about how stupid you have to be. Like, you have to be, like, borderline retarded to think that this is clever. The Rainmaker. He makes it rain. Why and how? These things have to be explained. D'Angelo De Niro was presented as a swindler of sorts, as a trickster, as a con artist, right? So this fit with his gimmick. He has money with his face on it, right? Because the entire point is this guy is trying to trick you, right? He's trying to sell you funny money, right? This is a simple point, and this was not very much elucidated in the D'Angelo De Niro gimmick, right? And that's fine. That's fine. You don't have to. The smart people like me will connect the dots, and the other people that maybe don't connect the dots, and I'm not saying they're dumb or anything, but the people that don't connect the dots, for them, it will inherently just make sense, right? There's a lot of things that are deeper than you think, but even for people that don't think that deeply about things, right, they still make sense inherently, right? And Okada as the Rainmaker doesn't make any sense. He's just a guy who stole a gimmick. Wow, big deal. He's got a shitty, soft clothesline finisher. He's skinny fat. And also some guy, I'll leave it with this, some guy in one of the videos that I made, probably in the Okada video, he said, Okada would beat you up. Ain't no way. I know he's bigger than me because he's like 6'4", and he's probably I'm not sure if he's stronger than me, to be completely honest, but let's just say he is. But despite that, ain't no way, and the hater means no way, that the hater is getting his ass beat by a guy who bleaches his hair, right? And calls himself the Rainmaker. Nah, motherfucks. I would take him on ferocity alone. I would bite his jugular if it came to it. He doesn't have the capacity to do that. And also, I actually have combat experience. I actually have boxing experience. Does this guy have any experience? So think before you speak, before I find Okada and slap the yellow off his head. But anyways, I digress. Okada has the makings of a decent mid-carder who could one day be elevated to the main event if booked properly. But this is not the proper booking, right? Nor, as I said in my other video, is he worth the money. At no point am I saying that Okada is a shit wrestler. I mean, I happen to think he is because there's nothing about him that I think is worthwhile. But I can understand why people like him. He falls into the category of things people like that I understand why they like it. I just don't like it, right? Like Rikishi's another one. Like I didn't really get it. I don't think it's funny for a fat man to dance like Rikishi dances like he thinks he's a good dancer, but instead he's like complete shit, right? Like the amount of cultural appropriation that the Usos and Rikishi have done on black culture is preposterous. Like they think they sound like black guys. They think they sound tough. They think they can rap, all three of them, right? Remember the rap with Rikishi and John Cena when John Cena completely humiliated him? And Rikishi was like, you think you're nice, but you're just another vanilla ice. Woo! And then those idiots, the Usos, those two dorks, right? These are the kind of guys that try to like hang out with like thug people and then they get made fun of. They're like, oh, these are the two pretenders, the two posers, you know what I'm saying? So, there ain't no such thing as halfway crooks. And there ain't no such thing as a halfway Elijah Burke called Okada in AEW, cuckolds.